Gwen opened her eyes and did her best cat stretch. The sun streaming into the window told her she had slept in. She turned over and reached for Milo, but found only the empty bed. Well, maybe he'd gotten up early. Her eagle eye noticed that his phone charger was not in its normal place on the nightstand. Weird. She got up, pulled on her comfy Saturday clothes and walked out into the living room. Milo looked up when she walked in, then snapped his head down into his book with some violence. Good morning. Good morning, handsome. Oh, thanks for setting up my tea for me. Every morning that he was in her house, she woke up to her mug sitting on the counter with her favorite tea next to it, and the kettle filled with water and ready to go. She could feel the warmth in her chest as she turned around to look at him. But he was thoroughly engrossed in his book. Gwen made her tea, then went to sit down next to him on the couch. She felt him move an inch in the other direction when she settled in. Milo, what's going on? Have your tea, then we'll talk. No, we're talking now. She put her mug down on the end table abruptly, sloshing tea over the rim. Okay, if that's what you want. He took a deep breath, then plowed forward. Gwen, I think we should take some time away from each other. To determine what we each really want. She took one measured, deep breath. Her eyes searched his face, trying to get an idea of what was going on inside his head. Nothing. Milo sure could be unreadable when he wanted to be. I'm not 100% sure where this is coming from. Yesterday you said you were enjoying our relationship. Has something happened to make you change your mind? She was fighting to keep the tears from showing in her eyes. She hated the fact that her voice wavered when she asked the question. Nothing's happened. I just don't know if we're ever going to find a middle ground. Geographically we're in two different places, and as far as our feelings for each other, well, it sounds like we're not together with those either. Because I told you I love you and asked how you felt about me. No, not just that. Well, you never answered. Do you love me and you're just too scared to say it? Or am I just a temporary fling to you? No stopping the tears on this one, they glistened up in her eyes. I don't even know how to answer that. His voice was flat and defeated. Is it that you don't trust me? Do you think I'd screw you over like your ex? Is that really what you think of me? The tears were receding. Now she was getting angry. Gwen, I just don't know what to think. There are so many reasons why this just isn't a good idea. The distance. My past. The fact that neither of us is willing to sacrifice anything to make it work. Take your pick. I just think some space is a good idea. His shoulders drooped as he let out a long, slow breath. Fuck you. Fuck you for running away and fuck you for not even trying to take a chance on us. I love you. And I know you love me just as much, even if you won't say it out loud. I cannot believe that you would run away from that because you're scared. I am not running away. I am walking away because I believe you are brilliant at what you do. Last night proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. You shouldn't have to sacrifice that. Distance is an issue, and not one that'll be easily solved. I am walking away because I want you to be happy. How can I be happy without the man that I love? I just don't know how to answer that either. Well, you've got an IQ of 160. If anyone can figure it the fuck out, it should be you. She eyed his fully packed duffel bag sitting on the floor next to him. He'd clearly thought this through. Well, I guess you should head out, then. Wouldn't want to keep you from your solitude. Obviously, that's very important to you. Gwen, I'm just saying we should take some time apart to think. That's all. Oh. Okay. I didn't realize that was all. Bitterness and sarcasm were creeping in, even though she was trying hard to keep them at bay. So how much time, Milo? What exactly are your plans? Because when I think of time apart, it sounds pretty much the same as breaking up to me. She looked at him, daring him to respond. Now that anger had overtaken her, she was looking for a fight. But he wasn't going to give it to her. I don't know, Gwen. I'm sorry, I really am. He stood up wearily and picked up his bag. He tucked his book under his arm. I'll call you. Milo, if you walk out that door right now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you. He turned to face her. His brown eyes were dark and stormy, and they glistened with unshed tears. Gwen took an involuntary step back. She'd never seen him cry before. He stared at her, holding her gaze for a long moment, then turned around and walked out the front door, closing it quietly behind him. A week and a day had done little to improve Gwen's mood. It was like there was a hollow place where her heart should have been. She went through every day, saying the right things and doing what she had always done. But it was like there was nothing behind it. She was just wearing a mask so no one would see how broken she really was. Dr. Vishnu walked into her office with a kind smile and a bowl of strawberries. Hi, Gwen. My wife sent some of the bounty of her garden for you. How are you doing? She looked up at him and tried to smile, but only managed a nod. Thanks, Neil. Please tell her I appreciate it. Well, we've got to get some food into you. I don't think I've seen you eat anything all week. He peered over his glasses at her, his eyes wide with concern. I'm okay, really. It's just been a hard week, you know. The tears were threatening to spill out again. She'd been doing nothing but crying herself to sleep every night. And she knew that everyone who looked at her could tell it. Dark circles sat under her tired eyes. She was empty and sad, and knew that she looked it, too. Definitely not the best version of herself this week. Have you heard from Milo? Vishnu asked tentatively. It was almost as if he was afraid to say his name. He texts every other day. Mostly that he misses me. Oh, and that this is still the right decision. What do you say to him? I haven't answered. Gwen, he's trying to keep the lines of communication open. Maybe he's realizing what a jackass he was, and he wants to talk. Are you ever going to answer? I don't know. I can barely stand seeing his name pop up on my phone. I don't know what I'd do if I actually had to hear his voice. He walked out on me, Neil. I know, and I'm sorry because I know that hurts. But we all make mistakes. You guys love each other. And I can't believe that one moment of fear and insecurity on his part is going to change that. Try 8 days of fear and insecurity. Not that I'm counting or anything. I just miss him so much. I can't believe he left like that. Hot tears fell on her cheeks. She could feel the blush up her neck. She really hated showing her emotions at work. It was what made her such a successful doctor. Stability was important, but this week she had felt like she was working without a net. He's going to realize it was the wrong choice. You know that, right? Cindy slid her own box of tissues across the desk to her. I just feel so empty without him. It's not like it was the physical part. We really only saw each other on the weekends. It was just the intimate part. The fact that I had someone to share my day with. Every time I saw him, I smiled. There wasn't even a reason for it. It's like my heart just did it involuntarily. I miss him. Ah, my dear Gwen. Life is short. But it is also wide. This too shall pass. She looked up from her soggy tissues. I don't know. We can both be pretty stubborn when we want to. Well, maybe it's time to change things up. I don't know. I mean, why should I be willing to take a chance on him when he was clearly not willing to take a chance on me? Because doing what you've always done will only get you what you've always gotten. If you want to change things, one of you has to take a step into something uncomfortable. And in the end, it won't matter who took that first step. What will matter is where you both end up. Thanks, Neil. For the strawberries and the wisdom. I may have an idea. The wheels were definitely turning. Dr. Vishnu sat back. His smile belying how satisfied he was with himself. Just remember who talked some sense into you when you guys celebrate your 25th anniversary, okay? This time Gwen's grin, while tiny, was genuine. While she still didn't have an ounce of confidence that there would be a 25th anniversary in the future, she had a bit more hope now than she had this morning. She picked up the phone to make some calls. She wasn't completely clear in her mind what her actual plan was. But at least she felt like she finally had a clear, sure path. Milo sat on his bar stool. Eyes cast down on the smooth, shiny wooden bar. He had never been a regular at the Thirsty Moose. But as May slipped into June, he was becoming a fixture at the local bar. Showing up pretty much every night for a beer or two. Or 3. It was the only way he'd found to calm the storm of emotions that overcame him whenever he thought of Gwen. He had been so sure he was doing the right thing in the beginning. But it was as if every bone in his body missed her. Every part of him was physically looking for her. He pinched the top of his nose between his eyebrows, trying to overcome the dull ache that had been around constantly these days. He finished off his beer and motioned for another. The bar was mostly empty at 1 p.m. But he felt warm air flood in when the door opened and then closed. Midge sat down on the stool next to him as he tried not to look up at her. Without a word, she slid a to-go box of spinach salad in his direction. He felt her gaze. Knowing she wasn't going to go away without saying what she had come to say. He blinked at the bar, and then looked over at her. He saw her giving him the once-over. He suddenly became very conscious of the fact that he hadn't shaved for a couple of days. Really, who was he kidding? He was a mess and he knew it. He felt the shame creep up inside him. And that brought the anger with it. He wasn't even really sure who he was angry at. He just knew that the emotions that had been sweeping over him this last month had left him raw and dazed. Unable to think with any logic or reason. Clearly, from Midge's expression. It showed. Well, you look a mess. Thanks, Midge, nice to see you too. He knew she only wanted to help. And she had brought him food. I'm sorry. Thank you for lunch. I appreciate it. Well, I can't imagine you've eaten a whole lot lately. Looks like you prefer to drink your meals. Milo, we're all worried about you. You really can't go on like this. What in the name of all that is holy is happening here? I'm sure you've already heard it all from Gwen. I have nothing to add. He knew at least Gwen and Sarah were friendly. He didn't want to come between that. All Gwen will tell us is that you're not together anymore. And she seemed pretty broken up about it. So I can't imagine it was her idea. Have you spoken to her? How is she? He half jumped off his seat. Hoping for a glimpse. Wanting to hear something. Anything about her. Midge's eyes softened. Milo, why are you doing this? You clearly love each other. This is for the best. It was never going to work. We live too far apart. And I'm absolutely no good for anyone in a long-term relationship. This is for the best. He repeated it, willing himself to believe it. He had been certain. But now that certainty was wavering. If a little thing like city versus mountains could sideline us. We clearly were never meant to be together. He choked at the thought and tried to slow his breathing down to a normal pace. Are you trying to convince me of that? Or yourself? I don't know what you mean. Milo, you are an astrophysicist. You study the vastness of the universe. In terms of that universe, the 80 miles between here and the city isn't even the blink of an eye. You're going to let that get in the way? Really? You're both smart people. You can find some middle ground. Tell me what the real problem is. Milo shook his head miserably. He felt like he was covered with a heavy, wet blanket that cut off all the light. All the air. He missed Gwen so much. Needed her so much. Every time another day dawned without her, it felt like a punch in the gut. But how could he justify keeping her trapped in this relationship just to make himself happy when he clearly couldn't be what she needed? Midge, it was proven to me that I am not relationship material. Conclusively. I do love her. But I can't be the man she needs. I can't give her the life she deserves. She deserves someone who can love her completely. Not someone who doubts that all of the time. I can't be what she needs. She fell in love with you. That means you already are what she needs. Midge was clearly not in the mood for what she considered nonsense. Doing this noble act. Bravely giving her up. That's nothing but protecting yourself, Milo. If you really loved her, you'd be willing to get out of the place you've been hiding all these years and do the hard stuff. You'd be eager to be the best you that you can be. Because that's what she needs. I want her to have the perfect life. She deserves that. He was definitely losing his conviction. Perfect doesn't exist, Milo. You give her the best life you can give. It'll be enough. You will be enough. You have to stop doubting that. Sometimes bad stuff happens. Did you ever get a bad grade on a test in college? Once. English Lit. And did you let that bad grade keep you from continuing on in school and studying the things you loved? Did it keep you from your passion? Or did you learn from it? Maybe even grow a little. Mio felt like he'd been hit by a bolt of lightning. Suddenly he saw the flaw in his thinking and began to realize he'd made a very big mistake. Every nerve ending tingled with the need to do something. To fix this. What if she doesn't want to see me? How do I tell her how sorry I am? Shit, I feel like the stupidest man alive at this moment. What the hell did I do? You're not stupid. You're in love. Sometimes they feel like the same thing. But you'll need to convince Gwen that she can trust you. That you're not going to let a moment of doubt keep you from the woman you love. And she needs to know that you're willing to be the best version of yourself that you can be. You can do this. I know you can. Sometimes he was more grateful for Midge and her motherly love. As well as her motherly kick in the ass. That there weren't enough words to express it. He jumped off his stool and gave her a hug. Without another word, he ran out of the bar. Well, I guess that went about as well as it could have. My work here is done. Jay. Let me have a pina colada, please. I'm celebrating.